guests, welcome to the 84th National Finals of the American Legion High School Oratorical Scholarship Program, a constitutional speech contest. We would also like to welcome those who are joining us via the internet, on Legion TV, and on Facebook. We're excited that you're here with us today. My name is Dave King. I'll be serving as today's contest moderator. At this time, will you please rise and remain standing through the completion of the Pledge of Allegiance. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. To lead us in our invocation this morning is Norris Kern, past National Chaplain of the American Legion. Please uncover.
Shall we be in an attitude of prayer? O gracious sovereign of the universe, in this post-Passover and Easter season, we give you glory for your deliverance and preservation. We thank you for your great love of humanity and the passion you have for each of us. We ask your blessings upon this day in this assembly, especially our contestants. We pray that you would help them to excel to their maximum capability. And we pray for our judges and their difficult decision to pick the order of the finalists. We thank you for the great American Legion and American Legion family and all they do for youth and young people in our country, especially in this time of peril with all the obstacles that young people have. Thank you for guiding us and blessing us. And as we gather this morning, we continue to offer prayer for our brave young men and young women around the globe, especially those who are in hostile situations at this very moment. We pray for your hand of protection to be upon them, and we pray that you'd watch over their families to keep the home fires going. Now, in all that we do this day, we give you glory, for we ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Would you please join Michelle DeGennaro, American Legion Auxiliary Americanism Chairman, in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. This morning, 3 contestants, each having won their respective department, the national quarterfinal, and the national semifinal contest rounds, will compete for $67,500 in college scholarships. In the over 80-year history of this activity, the American Legion has awarded over $3 million in college scholarships. You will notice that the three contestants are not in the auditorium at this time. Throughout the competition portion, they will appear on stage only to deliver their respective orations. I have some instructions for you, the audience. You play a key role in maintaining fairness to all the contestants. First, please do not applaud until the entire contest is completed. I would also ask you to refrain from taking pictures or videos. A staff photographer will be taking pictures of each contestant during their first few minutes of their orations. Please remain seated while a contestant is speaking. If you must leave the room between speakers, please return before the next speaker begins. Otherwise, you will not be permitted to re-enter until the speaker has finished their oration. In addition, please make sure that your cell phones and other electronic devices have been silenced. Either please turn them off or put them on silence. If you happen to be seated near a judge, please do not call attention or bother that judge. Our speakers will be introduced by number only. Prompting in any manner is not permitted. Doing so may result in the disqualification of the speaker. Each speaker is about to deliver an 8 to 10 minute prepared oration on some phase of the United States Constitution. The contestants are not allowed to use notes, a podium, or a sound system. You may notice that the contestants are wearing wireless microphones. This is to record their speech for video and our online broadcast, and will not in any way amplify their voices in the auditorium. The contestants will be shown a time card at the 8, 9, and 10-minute mark of their oration. If there is a violation of this time requirement, a penalty of 1 point for each minute or fraction thereof shall be assessed against the contestant's total score. There will be a short pause between contestants to allow judges to mark their scorecards. Before introducing the last speaker, I will ask a member of the audience to draw an assigned topic from the four provided. All contestants will then speak for 3 to 5 minutes on that same subject. When the last contestant has spoken for 7 minutes on the prepared oration, contestant number 1 will be taken to a private room and given the topic card and allowed 5 minutes in order to prepare his or her assigned topic presentation. I will read the assigned topic to you before contestant number 1 is introduced for that. If everyone is ready, I will call for contestant number 1. The title of their oration is A Delicate Balance.
Establishing a government, let alone a new type of government, is an exercise that can go horribly wrong. Nazi Germany, North Korea, the Soviet Union. Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence that governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. But all throughout human history, governments all over the world have acted without the consent of the governed to abuse power and take away natural rights. The solution seems simple. Avoid tyranny at all costs. Indeed, the popular consensus today is that tyrannical governments and authoritarian regimes must be abandoned and replaced by everyone's favorite form of government, democracy. But what does it really mean to be a democracy? Sometimes it just depends on who you ask. In December 2021, China's State Council Information Office stated in a white paper that the Chinese Communist Party upholds democracy because the CCP governs for the people. A nation with no free and fair elections that governs for the people. Now compare those words to the words of British Prime Minister George Grenville during a taxation debate in the House of Commons, 1765. This House's ears are always open to receive knowledge from the Americans and to act to it. The Parliament of Great Britain virtually represents the whole kingdom. The similarities are unmistakable. Both of those statements purport that their governments, although not elected by the general public, are democratic because they govern in the best interests of their people. And what's more, both of those statements are wrong. In order for government to truly be for the people, it must also be of and by the people. Whether they masquerade as democracies or not, autocratic countries like 21st century China and 18th century Britain represent a long and sorry tradition that has plagued too much of human history. The tyranny of the minority, in which a small group of people persecutes their fellow citizens. Good government must be, by necessity, free and democratic government. But if free, democratic government cures society's ills, what difficulties remain? Indeed, why not have all the citizens vote on every issue and have all major policy decisions be made by majority rule? Picture a desert island inhabited by 100 wolves and 99 sheep. Now, imagine that they all vote on what to eat for dinner. Under the pure, direct democracy of our desert island, the 99 sheep have become a feast before they know it. We thus stumble upon a threat to humanity less obvious, but perhaps even more dangerous than autocratic rule: the tyranny of the majority. At first, the tyranny of the majority sounds like an oxymoron. The word tyranny conjures up images of a brutal dictator oppressing the common people. However, when a majority of citizens ruthlessly imposes its policies and moral standards upon a minority, the results can be just as destructive. As James Madison said at the Virginia Constitutional Convention, abuse of power by the majority, trampling on the rights of the minority, has more frequently than any other cause produced despotism. The predicament seems nearly impossible to resolve. On one side stands the tyranny of the minority, the dictator, and on the other stands the tyranny of the majority, the mob. If you give too much power to the smallest, they begin to dominate the whole. But if you give too much power to the largest, they begin to subjugate the rest. No matter how egalitarian a democracy or how stringent its protections for its citizens, these dangers eventually seem inescapable. Country after country either falls into tyranny or dissolves into anarchy as the vicious cycle of history consigns them all into the past. How can any government expect to survive? How can our government, our nation, our liberties and freedoms and values that millions have fought and died for, how can we survive? Facing this seemingly insurmountable question at the Constitutional Convention, our framers filled our Constitution with provisions that both advance and limit popular rule. In Article 1 alone, Section 2 gives us the House of Representatives, where the people's tempers flare in fiery speeches. But the very next section gives us the Senate, where slow and deliberate debate prevails. Section 8 empowers the people's legislature to create laws. but Section 7 gives veto power to the president. All across our founding document can be found this delicate balance between empowering and limiting elected majorities. The key word in the phrase delicate balance, however, is delicate. The more checks and balances erode, political divisions intensify, and Americans lose faith in our institutions, the more people feel compelled to use both government and societal power as tools of tyranny and injustice. Data show that trust in all branches of our government has collapsed over the past few decades, but perhaps even more disturbingly, despite the fact that we all share one country and live under the same flag, around 20% of Americans now support the use of violence to achieve political aims. In these troubled times, it is only natural for us to hope that everything will be all right as long as we put our faith in our Constitution. But the Constitution itself puts its faith in we, the people of the United States. No document, no matter how powerful its protections and safeguards, can withstand relentless assaults on its fundamental principles. In the end, it is up to us to avoid both the tyrannies of the minority and the majority. It is up to us to applaud political courage and not political showmanship. It is up to us to participate in our democratic process and defend our Constitution. Those are the responsibilities of good citizenship. In the summer of 2020, I became a United States citizen. I stood up, raised my right hand, and swore an oath to protect our nation and our founding documents against all enemies, foreign and domestic. To find our greatest enemy today, we must look within ourselves. As polarization accelerates, government is increasingly being used as a weapon, a battering ram for whoever is in the majority to run roughshod over the earnest pleas of the rest of the country. Nothing could be more dangerous. As George Washington said in his farewell address, the alternate domination of one faction over another is itself a frightful despotism. We must reframe our perception of what government should be like, not domineering factions relentlessly attacking one another, but Americans doing what is best in our hearts and our minds for the future of our nation. Countless people have dedicated and lost their lives for the bold American idea that people can govern themselves. The burden is now on the shoulders of all Americans to defend that idea for our nation, for our posterity, and indeed for all humanity.
The time for contestant number 1 is 9 minutes, 42 seconds. There is no time penalty. contestant number 2. The title of her oration is The Black Hole of American Democracy. American territories are where voting rights vanish.
Louis Segovia, a U.S. citizen who lives in Guam with his family, served an 18th-month tour in Iraq with the U.S. Army, a 12-month tour in Afghanistan with the Illinois National Guard, and a 10-month tour in Afghanistan with the Guam National Guard. In Iraq, he helped provide security for the 2005 Iraqi elections. He was deployed on his second tour to Afghanistan just months after the United States 2012 presidential elections, in which he was unable to vote for his own president. Louis Segovia was willing to give his life for his country. He fought to protect Iraqi citizens' right to vote, but back home in America, Louis, along with 4 million residents of the American territories of Guam, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Northern Mariana Islands, were denied their right to vote. A soldier with no say over who his commander-in-chief will be. A citizen subjected to taxation without representation. And a man with no influence over the laws which he must follow. The U.S. Constitution is the bedrock foundation of each American's liberty. And the right to vote is what gives liberty a voice. Today, however, I would like to talk with you about an interpretation of the Constitution which has silenced the voices of over 4 million Americans like you and me by denying them that very right. The Insular cases were handed down by the U.S. Supreme Court during a period referred to by historians as the zenith of American empire, from 1901 to 1922. They confirmed Congress's ability to rule Guam, Puerto Rico, and other newly acquired lands as colonies without the possibility of statehood by establishing what is known as the Territorial Incorporation Doctrine. The Supreme Court had determined that all territories acquired from 1787 to 1898, including Alaska and Hawaii, were incorporated to be treated as states in waiting, with their residents entitled to the full privileges and immunities of citizenship and their destiny to be full participation in America's national elections. However, the Spanish colonies acquired after 1898 were islands said by the Supreme Court to be, quote, inhabited by alien races, to be treated as unincorporated territories, foreign in the domestic sense, and were to be owned by the United States government and governed as possessions, end quote. As important as the 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th Amendments to the Constitution have been for securing voting rights for most Americans, it is impossible to understate the role racial hostility played in these incorrect decisions, which came about even after the 15th Amendment was adopted. Justice Edward White, a former Confederate soldier, at one time captured by the Union Army during the Civil War, invented that Territorial Incorporation Doctrine. Edward White publicly stated he did this because, quote, we couldn't incorporate 10 million black-skinned people like that in the United States. Think what the consequences would be, end quote. 120 years later, a law built upon those words still stands. The Insular cases misinterpreted the U.S. Constitution and effectively overturned precedent going all the way back to the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, that once a newly acquired American territory had a population of 60,000 people and achieved a republican form of government, then that territory would, if requested by the people of the land, be admitted by Congress into the Union as a new state, quote, on equal footing with the original states, end quote. After the Insular cases, the unincorporated territories were never destined for statehood. no matter how high their population became, what form of government they chose to adopt, or the majority vote requesting for statehood time and time again. The Insular Cases changed the meaning of the term the United States to include territories whom we were willing to tax, but not grant any constitutional protections. One of the most illogical results of the Insular Cases is that any U.S. citizen born of or residing in an American territory can run for president and become our executive, our commander-in-chief, yet they are unable to vote for themselves or another candidate. America's unincorporated territories are the only places in the entire universe where U.S. citizens cannot vote for president under Article 2 or members of Congress under Article 1. Pursuant to the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, U.S. citizens who move from one of the 50 states to a foreign nation or even to outer space to serve on the International Space Station, they can still vote. However, if a U.S. citizen moves within the United States to Guam, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, or the Northern Mariana Islands, they lose their right to vote for as long as they reside there. Because of the Insular Cases, Americans in the territories exist in what a dissenting justice called the disembodied shade of limbo status. Existing, but not heard from. Present, but not represented. 4 million Americans all live in an alternate dimension of disenfranchisement. Louis Segovia and other U.S. military servicemen have filed multiple cases in federal court, attempting to win that right to vote, but have lost each time. However, last spring, U.S. Supreme Court Justices Gorsuch and Sotomayor both said, quote, "The Insular Cases rest on a rotten foundation of ugly racial stereotypes and are odious and wrong," end quote. Justice Gorsuch noted, quote, "The flaws in the Insular Cases are as fundamental as they are shameful. Nothing in the Constitution speaks of incorporated or unincorporated territories. Nothing in it authorizes judges to engage in segregating territories or the people who live in them on the basis of race, ethnicity, or religion," end quote. We're not alone in recognizing this long-standing injustice and calling for a reform. There is a beacon of light shining through the storm, moving the tides of the Supreme Court to overturn the Insular Cases. We need only to follow that light to the shores of liberty. The U.S. Constitution holds within her words our most cherished guarantees of liberty and equality, yet its words are not enough. They must be correctly interpreted to do justice for us all. The Constitution was not meant to permit the creation of permanent unincorporated territories subject to the absolute power of the federal government, but has been wrongly interpreted to do so. Fortunately, America's Constitution has overcome numerous wrong interpretations over the past 2 centuries. From Plessy v. Ferguson, justifying racial segregation, to Minor v. Happersett, preventing women like me from having the ability to vote. But more remains to be done, because the Insular Cases are still with us. The Equally American Project is presently working to appeal Louis Segovia and other U.S. military servicemen's cases up to the Supreme Court. The Insular Cases must be overturned. No U.S. citizen who has willingly fought for our country to defend democracy should be denied the right to participate in that process when they return home. No U.S. citizen should have taxation without representation, because that's what our forefathers fought against 248 years ago, and it's every bit as unjust now as it was then. The most undeniable human inclination is our desire to communicate, to use our voices to speak out against injustice and to rise together over adversity. And when someone has fallen in the fight, to shout out into the night for the rest to come and save them. 4 million Americans like you and me are calling out. They're calling out, but they've yet to be heard. So who will give them their voice? When will we all speak out? rise together and grant those the rights they too have fought for and deserve. Thank you.
The time for contestant number 2 is 9 minutes and 33 seconds. There is no time penalty. Before I introduce contestant number 3, we will draw the assigned topic. National Vice Commander of the American Legion, Kenneth Hilton. Would you stand, be recognized? Thank you, sir, for being here. And will you please select an envelope? Assigned topic monitor, would you please take this to the assigned topic room? Thank you. I will announce the topic following the prepared oration by contestant number 3. We'll call for contestant number 3. The title of her oration is, I am not throwing away my shot.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am not throwing away my shot. Just like my country, I too am young, scrappy, and hungry, and not throwing away my shot. As the third song in the hit Broadway musical Hamilton, written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, the song My Shot was my first time, truly understanding the passion and the drive behind the creation of one of the most important documents in world history, the U.S. Constitution. Through fast-paced raps and modern-day style dialogue, I finally felt like I could understand what my history teachers had spent years trying to convey. For those 2 hours and 40 minutes, I was captivated by these key and distinct American notions. The process towards compromise, the importance of upholding a legacy, and the obligation to fulfilling the duties of the people. Through the power of music, I became more connected to America's past and its founding documents than I had over the last decade of social studies lessons. Now, to address the elephant in the room, I understand that for some of you here, you might have never had the opportunity to hear or see the production of Hamilton. In my humble opinion, Hamilton is my generation's Schoolhouse Rock. But, for a brief synopsis, Hamilton is narrated by Aaron Burr, the antagonist to protagonist Alexander Hamilton, a young man who, after fleeing his home country of the West Indies, is looking for his place in an emerging country. Over time, Hamilton starts to find himself in key moments of history and being involved with creating a sustainable government for a new nation. While it's a unique perspective, it is exactly through this different approach that captivated millions and allowed teenagers like me to question how exactly our government operates. Despite the word compromise never actually being stated in the U.S. Constitution and only being alluded to in the musical, it is exactly through this word that got the document to be ratified in the first place. The three major compromises involved with the U.S. Constitution were the Great Compromise, the Three-Fifths Compromise, and the Electoral College Compromise. Each had their own separate narrative of battling out representation between larger and smaller states, establishing how voting would work between the North and the South, and finally, establishing the matter of how a president was to be elected. Even though Hamilton doesn't directly address any of those compromises, in songs called The Room Where It Happens and Cabinet Battle Number 1 and Number 2, I found myself researching different moments in history where regular mortal men all convened in a room and had to find creative ways to persuade others of what and who to support. And don't get me wrong, as cool as it would be to imagine that the George Washington had delegates freestyle raps out on issues like state debts and establishing a national bank, I know that this would be stretching history a little too far. With that being said, though, it was through these seemingly silly scenarios that had me ponder this. How much do our citizens really know about the US Constitution? Even with the history class we all arguably sat through, or still are sitting through, we have to see that when looking at the Annenberg Civics Knowledge Survey, it found that only 47% of respondents could recall the 3 branches of government. I'll give you a hint: judicial, legislative, and executive. Ladies and gentlemen, that is less than half. And the conductors of this survey haven't seen such a sharp decrease since 2016. And even a little bit more scary, 1 in 4 couldn't recall any of the basic rights protected by the First Amendment. Take a look around the room, ladies and gentlemen. Chances are you might be sitting next to someone like that. But while this is scary information, why exactly is this happening? Where is the correlation? Let's look to the Common Core state standards, where it ultimately leaves this up to the discretion of the teachers as to how engaged these kids can get with the documents, the seminal ones at that, such as the preamble to the US Constitution, or say, the Declaration of Independence. If you're looking at this and reading into this the same way I have, we have to see that it truly is no question why students gravitated towards Hamilton and understood the plotline more. Because in reality, many have never formed a genuine bond with our country's past. In the deprivation of connection to the US Constitution, many have never understood their obligations and duties that are protected by the world's longest surviving written charter of government. In a total of 7 articles, the US Constitution gives not just the rulebook of how to govern, but how to make sure that the people are involved. While the following quote is commonly ill-attributed to one of our founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, I believe that it still accurately encapsulates the situation that the youth of America faces today. It states, "Tell me, and I forget. Teach me, and I may remember. Involve me, and I learn." Ironically, just in the last 20-odd years, as the tech industry has released numerous kinds of cell phones, video call platforms, and social media chat rooms, many would like to have it appear that we as a nation have become disengaged with the government that relies on the power of the people. But in actuality, the next generation has become more involved than ever. According to the Center for Research on American Civic Learning, Duty, and Engagement, Gen Z and millennials 18 to 29 made history for having the 2nd highest voter turnout ever seen in the 2022 midterm election. Just as Christopher Jackson, the actor who portrays George Washington, states in his solo song, "I know that we can win. I know that greatness lies in you. But remember, from here on in, history has its eyes on you. Indeed, history has its eyes on the next group of protectors. And it's up to my generation to fill out the obligations and duties that have been secured for the past 2.5 centuries. But you're probably thinking to yourself, this girl has rambled on a lot about her generation. What about mine? Simply put, through using the acronym USA. The first step out of 3 is to utilize our voices. While Gen Z makes up around 20.35% of the population, Gen Z is said to be the most racially and ethnically diverse group of all time. Just like the conventions held in the late 18th century, we too as a nation can come together and use this group of people's unique voice for change and advocacy of what we all believe in. The second step is to supply curiosity about the Constitution through sustainable and engaging learning programs. Currently seen, the status quo is proven not to be really effective. But through using musical creations such as Hamilton, we can allow our present and future generations to see our history in a new medium and new perspective. The third and final step is to allow for new thoughts and opinions to be heard. Throughout the history of America, it has been through the power of the people that has allowed change to occur. Whether it be through the 19th Amendment of granting women the right to vote, or the 26th Amendment of giving voting privileges to those who are 18 years old, this shift in change has always been directly tied to the people. In order to continue this trend of growth, there must be some form of implementation of USA, utilize, supply, and allow, in our everyday lives. Just as I had started off my speech today by quoting a lyric from Hamilton, I'd like to conclude with one. As Hamilton and his friends are sitting in a bar, reflecting on their thoughts surrounding the war, they all start to sing a little song titled "The Story of Tonight." It goes, "I may not live to see our glory, but I will gladly join the fight. And when our children tell our story, they'll tell the story of tonight." Just like how Hamilton had motivated me to want to learn more about the process of achieving a compromise and the importance of upholding a legacy, I can only hope today that my words have spurred you into fully fulfilling your obligations and duties as a citizen of the United States of America. Thank you.
The time for contestant number 3 is 9 minutes and 18 seconds. There is no time penalty. For the past 5 minutes, contestant number 1 has been in a private room preparing for the assigned topic presentation. The contestants will be shown a time card at the 3, 4, and 5 minute mark of their assigned topic discourse. If there is a violation of the time requirement, a penalty of 1 point for each minute or fraction thereof shall be assessed against the contestant's total score. The topic the contestants will address during this portion of the contest is Amendment 26. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. Ladies and gentlemen, contestant number 1.
Our tax system is rigged for billionaires who don't make their fortunes through income like working families do. The evidence is abundantly clear. It is time for a wealth tax in America to make the ultra-rich finally pay their fair share. That was Senator Elizabeth Warren in June of 2021, arguing for the implementation of her well-known wealth tax proposal. The debate over this plan for the past few years has mainly centered on its economic desirability. But there is another important question that is raised far less often. Would it be constitutional? Although the renewed push to institute a wealth tax in the United States is a relatively recent phenomenon, the debate around the constitutionality of taxes is one that goes back to the founding of our nation itself. When they met at the Constitutional Convention, our framers wanted to give our federal government more power than it had under the Articles of Confederation. But having just fought a revolution against an oppressive monarchy, they were understandably worried about giving Congress too much power to tax the American people. Their solution was to place numerous restrictions on taxation. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution states, "The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises." It goes on to say that duties, imposts, and excises must be uniform throughout the United States, while direct taxes must be apportioned among the states according to population. As it turns out, this requirement of apportionment is extremely difficult to meet and makes most types of taxation impossible. Imagine that there was a state with a large population of low-income earners and another state with a small population of high-income earners. A direct tax would have to be apportioned so that the inhabitants of the larger state, despite being lower income, would have to pay higher tax rates than the inhabitants of the smaller and richer state. However, the Constitution only requires apportionment for what it calls direct taxes. So for centuries, the question around taxes wasn't whether they were apportioned correctly or not, but whether they were direct taxes or not. The Supreme Court's decisions on this issue have been rather back and forth. In the earlier cases of Halton v. United States and Springer v. United States, it ruled that both the tax on carriages and the Civil War-era income tax were indirect and therefore constitutional, even though not apportioned by population. However, the court later modified this precedent in Pollock v. Farmers Loan and Trust Company, in which it ruled that income taxes were in effect direct taxes on the property where the income came from. This decision made it nearly impossible to raise revenue with an income tax, so Congress responded by passing the 16th Amendment. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states. Since the adoption of the 16th Amendment, our federal government has become a massive, centralized behemoth fueled primarily by the income tax, but it is now in trillions of dollars of debt. Regardless of what you think of the policy, would trying to raise revenue with a wealth tax be constitutional? Well, the 16th Amendment only refers specifically to income, and a wealth tax would likely be interpreted as a tax on property. However, there is an argument to be made that such a tax would be indirect and free from any required apportionment. But no matter which side wins out, we must always remember that the Constitution's restrictions on taxation are there for a reason. The revenue raised by the 16th Amendment has no doubt helped to fund extremely useful government programs, but we must always be on the lookout for overreach. Our nation was born in an act of defiance against unjust taxation, and it will require the vigilance of the American people to ensure we do not become what we sought to destroy.
The time for contestant number 1 is 4 minutes and 53 seconds. There is no time penalty. Ladies and gentlemen, contestant number 2.
Nothing in life is certain, except death and taxes. Thanks to the 16th Amendment, for over a century, our government was financed without an income tax. For over 15 presidential terms, the federal government performed all its duties without taking our hard-earned money. Income taxes were long considered unconstitutional and in fact struck down in the 1895 Supreme Court decision of Pollock versus Farmers Loan and Trust Company. In that case, Justice Stephen Field penned what some may regard as a prophecy. A small progressive tax, he said, quote, will be but the stepping stone to others larger and more sweeping, till our political contests will become a war of the poor against the rich, end quote. Was Justice Stephen Field right? What has the federal income tax done for our nation? Today we're going to consider the 16th Amendment and whether it's helped or hindered our course. The amendment provides that the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. In 1913, when the 16th Amendment was ratified, its purpose was to collect taxes for the federal government. However, those funds were never intended to finance capital improvements or social programs, but the First World War. At that time, income taxes only affected 2% of the population, with a 1 to 6% tax to provide food, shelter, and arms for soldiers. During the Second World War, the income tax reached a record high of 70%, stripping families of their paycheck. However, there was no uprising and little outrage. Americans were willing to give what they had, to come alongside their brothers and sisters to make a difference in the effort to save their country and the world from fascism. Fast forward 80 years, according to the Congressional Budget Office, 44% of the population pays an average of 20%, or around $16,000 to the government. Taxes now make up 85% of the government's budget, as opposed to 3% after the 16th Amendment's ratification. The CBO reported in 2022 that the majority of the government's revenue goes to mandatory obligations, such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, civilian and military retirement programs, as well as veteran programs, which offer a platform for veterans to share their powerful stories and connect my generation to the heroes who have come before us. Next in line for the income tax dollar is the national defense, which obligates 15% of the federal budget. Funds within this category go to research, weapon testing, and manufacturing to keep America's defense the most technologically advanced in the world. Money in this category also has a global impact, providing assistance to allies such as Taiwan and Ukraine, to protect our strategic relationships, provision our troops abroad, and assist those escaping the grasp of authoritarian regimes. The income tax is the way that our country has the resources to take care of those who are willing to give the ultimate sacrifice for us, or to provide for the Gold Star families of men and women who did give it all. It's a way in which we can lend a hand to those who we would otherwise never be able to lift up. The income tax is now used to finance our interstate road system, our air traffic control systems, and infrastructure such as power lines, dams, and harbors. One thing is certain, our country would look very different today if it were not for the 16th Amendment, which has taken us from dirt roads to paved roads and to the moon and back. Is the income tax a good thing? It's a question and a debate we'll probably continue to ask and try to answer every year on April 15th. But after 110 years of the income tax, it's clear that the 16th Amendment has been a driving force in America's advancement in Western civilization, turning dreams for America into a reality for Americans. Thank you.
Time for contestant number 2 is 4 minutes and 31 seconds. There is no time penalty. Ladies and gentlemen, contestant number 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, in case you haven't picked up on the fact already, I'm a huge fan of the musical Hamilton. But specifically, I'm more of a fan of the fact that creator Lin-Manuel Miranda was able to take information that we have become so saturated with and turn it into something new, make it the iconic musical that it is today. And we can see that this is actually cross-applied to the idea of the US Constitution. While I certainly don't think our founding fathers drew inspiration from, say, the modern-day rappers, I think they did draw inspiration from the Romans. And they understood that the novel idea of the United States had to have something unique to fit with it, thus creating the iconic document that we have today that can be amended, that is living and able to show that the people hold the power to protest and to contest the fact that if they ever find something to be unconstitutional, they can say so. But before we can really jump into the modern day implications of Amendment 16, let's take a step back and really try to understand how it came to be. So, for a bit of a personal anecdote, I can recall my first exposure to taxes with my summer job. I worked on the custodial crew at my district level, and when I got my first paycheck, let me just say I was surprised when I saw a subtraction sign. Wait, the government takes money away from me? While I may have been a little bit naive, we have to understand that it's not exactly a universal experience. But we've all gone through the process of having the government collect taxes. And specifically, when understanding the history of it, we can see that taxation without representation played a pivotal role in dictating how the government was going to address this problem. Because we didn't want a repeat of England. We wanted something new. So while Amendment 16 wasn't necessarily created with the Bill of Rights, it still held a pivotal role in understanding the consequences of what happened if we didn't fully address it. So now that we got that brief history lesson out of the way, where exactly can we apply some application to it? Let's look at the Supreme Court case of Hilton versus the United States, one of the very first ones dedicated to this amendment, where a carriage owner found that he didn't want the government taxing his carriages. He said that whether it was direct or indirect, it shouldn't play that role. but the government favored inside of the US. And we found that we were actually able to distinguish what these taxes meant, and that the government had the ability to do so in the first place. So while it might not have been in favor of him, it did dictate how we would go about setting precedents, and understanding that the amendments, or specifically this particular amendment, understood how we were supposed to dictate the ability to not just protest, but understand that taxes are going to be a part of our everyday lives, whether we like it or not. So let's cross-apply this once again back to that modern-day application. What does it exactly mean to us? We can understand that taxes aren't going away, as much as we don't like them. But in order to build back up America, and in order to continue to operate in a manner that is successful, Amendment 16 plays that role continuously in allowing for our system and our government to be set up in the manner that it is today. So, with a brief bit of a history lesson, a Supreme Court case, and a personal anecdote, I urge you all that, while yes, we might not like them, and while yes, we have to go through it on a yearly basis, Amendment 16 is going to stay. But should you ever find yourself in the situation where you find something to be unconstitutional, hold close to you that right that we are all given as American citizens. Thank you.
The time for contestant number 3 is 3 minutes, 54 seconds. There is no time penalty. This concludes the competition portion of this program. Will the judges and tabulators please go directly to the tabulation room for the determination of contest results. At this time, we will take a short recess. I would ask that everyone be back in their seats in 20 minutes. Thank you.
In World War II, there was a ship called the Dorchester, and on its way to Greenland, it was torpedoed by a German U-boat, and there were 4 chaplains on board, and they each represented a different faith, and they gave up their life vests to other crew members on board when the ship was sinking. My great-grandfather was also on the ship, the Dorchester, and each year my family goes to a memorial, and it's held at different places of worship. And so I wanted to educate the community on something or a piece of history that not many people know about. This picture is a picture of the 4 chaplains who gave their life vests to the other crew members on board. And starting from the left here is Lieutenant Alexander Good, a Jewish rabbi. And then right next to him is Lieutenant George Fox, a Methodist minister. And then next to him is Lieutenant Clark Poling, a Dutch Reformed minister. And then finally, Lieutenant John Washington, a Roman Catholic priest. And so I just sort of described on the top here the date, and basically that the Dorchester was torpedoed by a German U-boat. And then down here, I basically described everything that was going on the boat, that there was a lot of panic, and the 4 chaplains really sort of helped everyone calm down, and they selflessly gave up their life vests to help other men on board. And when the ship was sinking, they held hands and prayed and sang hymns, and people from the lifeboats were able to see them. And then there were only 230 survivors out of the 904 servicemen that were on board, and the 4 chaplains were posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Cross and the Purple Heart to honor their heroic acts. It makes me happy because this project took a long time and it took a lot of hours, and I'm also happy that it's able to make such an impact on my community, because I've had people come to me and say that they didn't know about this story and they were really, touched by the plaque. So I'm happy that I have that impact on my community.
DDPY, DDP Yoga, is geared towards old gray-haired guys covered in tattoos that ride Harleys that never would be caught dead doing yoga. So I resurrected myself about 4 years ago out of a state of depression. I was at times walking with a walking cane because of my back and my knee injuries. And I went on to lose about 40 pounds and rehabilitated my core and core strength through DDP Yoga to support my lumbar from the inside out by tightening your core. So DDPY stands for Diamond Dallas Page Yoga. Diamond Dallas Page is a former wrestler. Well, he broke his back in the ring and was told by many doctors that he would never be able to wrestle again. So he went on to go through rehabilitation, and his wife recommended that he do yoga to rebuild himself to get his career back. So he did, and he realized how powerful it was, and he rebuilt himself, and he went on to go and win the heavyweight championship of the world. So I rebuilt myself and resurrected myself with this DDP yoga program. And it was so powerful and effective that once I resurrected myself, I wanted to share it with other veterans, specifically my friends here at this post 34.
This program is awesome. My past 13 years I've been a nutritionist and herbalist, and being commander of this post, we do see a lot of issues with veterans, and we've had some in here that is on that verge of being number 23 for that month or year. So it's very scary, and when this program came on board, I was the commander when Scott wanted to implement it. As a nutritionist and as a veteran, it is about what we eat, how we think, how we feel, how we move, and that is very important. And when Scott wanted to implement this program, I thought it was awesome. It's still hard to get some of these older veterans in there because they only have one thing in mind, and it's being in the social area.
So when Be the One was announced, and when I heard about it here, I volunteered to help launch Be the One events here at our post, and anything to bring attention to veteran suicide. We are our brother's keeper, and we are responsible to look after our brothers and sisters here, to take care of one another. And that's what I like about Be the One. It's not just reaching out to society, but it's also looking out for our brothers and sisters who are right around us and paying attention to how they're feeling and how they're doing.
Melanie's perspective-wise, as I said, I was a prisoner in my own home. And I also felt like I was a prisoner in my own body because my body had failed me. And once I regained that mobility, the mind follows. If you're weak in body, you're weak in mind. And it gave me everything back that I was lacking.
I started doing DDPY in about, I think 2019. I had seen the Arthur Borman video, and at that point I was over 400 pounds, sunk in depression. So I had seen that video and thought I don't have any excuses, and his story, I felt like I could relate. I didn't have the honor of serving like he did, and that's what damaged him, but I just wanted to be a better individual, so I started using the program, lost 162 pounds, and but more than that, I gained respect for myself and and an understanding of my body. I never thought I'd be healthy. I just had resigned to a life of this is how I am. I drink alcohol, you know, I was an addict. I've been clean for, I think, 8 months. So physically, mentally, I'm a totally different person.
Well, I'm 88 years old, and I was kind of a couch potato. And I had my hip replaced, and when I walked, I rocked like now I walk pretty straight. It has strengthened my leg tremendously, and I love it. And French is a great guy.
My name is Reese Reeling. I'm a first-year master's student at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. I am studying marine science and technology. Receiving the American Legion Legacy Scholarship has really helped me further my education, and being able to mix that with my dad's military service is a real honor to be able to mix those together and have a little bit of a connection through this. My dad's name is Timothy Walsh. He was a sergeant of the Army. He did a tour in Iraq. He was a part of Operation Iraqi Freedom, OFI 3, and he was in Iraq from 2004 to 2005, but he was in military service from 2001 to 2007. Post 9/11, he wanted to go back and help, so he went and re-enrolled after 9/11. He was originally in the Army as well in the 90s beforehand. I was very excited to hear that I was one of the recipients of the American Legion Legacy Scholarship. It really made me be able to focus just on school and not have to worry about any external finance struggles that come along with having to fund school. My dad being able to serve this country, I'm very proud, and he's very proud that he was able to do this, and I also wanted to be able to help others. Military is not really my forte, but being able to help other people is what I wanted to be able to do. So finding a medium between science, which I love, and being able to help others like my dad did, I would really like to continue this and be able to learn how to protect our planet. One of the projects that the lab I'm working on is doing is atmospheric microplastic deposition on Nantucket Island. They are studying the amount of microplastics on different points of the island in the air. The ocean is the biggest ecosystem in the entire world. It takes up most of our planet, and for it to not have a voice and be able to say that it needs help is something that I want to really be able to fix. A lot of it is in danger, and I really do want to be able to help bring it back to life a little bit. And some of the work I'm doing here is working with microplastics and studying the abundance of plastic in our atmosphere, the oceans, inside animals. I would have to give the biggest thank you from the bottom of my heart that I possibly could. It means more than they would ever know, being able to continue on my education in my life, and having this donation honor military families is a great place for it to go.
Hello, my name is Scott French. I'm with American Legion, Post 34, Cave Creek, Arizona. I am helping our post with the Be the One campaign. And some of the things that we did is we created some of the brochures that are available on BeTheOne.org website. If you go to the website, there are tools that you can download for your post that will help you to promote your events. At BeTheOne.org, you can download the trifold brochure, which has all the information pre-printed on it about Be the One, and then there's an area in there where you can drop in your information for your post, and it's a customizable download. Very easy for you to do to make this work for you and your events at your post. Another thing that we did is we created a little gift bag to give to participants who join our events. Within the gift bag, there is a wallet card that is also on BeTheOne.org. You can hand this out after your events. It directs people to BeTheOne.org for more resources for veterans. We also had the auxiliary, the ALA got involved and helped make these really cool Be the One rubber wristbands. And so we put these together, the wallet card and the wristband, into some gift bags that we found online, very inexpensive, and be able to give to people at the end of the event. Some other things that we did was we downloaded, again at BeTheOne.org, they have tools. You can download pre-made banners, the files for them. So you can download that, bring it to your printer if you have a local printer that you work with. You can bring it to like a Minuteman press or any quick print shop, and you can have it printed and you can pick different sizes.
I'm from Hays, Kansas. Hi, my name is Claudia Elliott. I'm from Jasper, Alabama.
Hello, my name is Andrew James Bevington, and I'm from Newark, Delaware.
And today I am the Samsung Scholar, and I am a Samsung Scholar. So I went to Girls State in summer of 2022, and it was an amazing experience. I'm so thankful for it. We met so many amazing people. Katie Britt came and spoke, and the governor came. We went to the governor's mansion, and I met so many great girls from around my state who I know that I'll be working with possibly in the future. I know some people in my city are going to be roommates in college. They're all so sweet. And so it was just a really amazing experience to get to be involved in all these legislative processes and to meet all these amazing people.
So I have never heard of Girls State before, and a large population of our town hasn't heard of it before. But I got a letter in the mail that some of our girls from the auxiliary heard about me and thought I would be good to attend, and I ended up getting their scholarship to attend, and I went to Girls State. It was an amazing experience. I met so many great people. I learned so much, and I applied for the Samsung Scholarship there.
My experience was a lot of fun. So in Delaware, we get to use our actual state legislator, House of Representatives, and Senate. So I was able to see what it actually looked like and use the microphone, sit in the chairs, and just debate bills and have a lot of fun. And we'd stay up into the late hours of the night talking to each other, enjoying each other, and also making our bills better.
This scholarship is absolutely wonderful. It's definitely opened a lot of doors for me personally. I was eligible because my grandfather and great-grandfather had served in the military.
My grandfather served during the Korean War era and was stationed in Alaska. I'm thrilled. I'm sure he would be thrilled with the opportunities I've had through Boys State, Boys Nation, and this scholarship, and it means a lot to me. It means a lot to my mom and her family.
So being in Washington, D.C. has been such an incredible experience. I never expected to get to do anything like this, and everyone in the Legion and the auxiliary has been so incredibly kind. All of the people that I've met in the Alabama department have been so incredibly kind, and getting to have all of these different experiences touring different places in Washington and really paying respect to the different veterans has been such an incredible experience that I'm so thankful for. Thank you to Samsung and the American Legion for providing me with this opportunity.
I would just like to say thank you, and thank you for your service. It means a lot to us. Our country's built off the service that you guys have done for us. I hope to continue in the future and honor these people, and hopefully I can serve alongside you guys.
So I would absolutely 100,000% like to say thank you so very much to the American Legion and all of their different branches, and to Samsung and just all of them for giving me this opportunity for both Girls State and then the scholarship, and then coming here and being able to meet all them and helping me with my future. Just thank you so much to all of them, everyone. Thank you.
Maybe just if your eyes are closed and just take a moment to pause in this place within that feels something like gratitude.
Lift your heels and toes back a few times, and then allow your feet to settle into the earth by just feeling the ground on the balls of your feet and under the heels of your feet.
Veterans Yoga Project is near and dear to my heart. As a mom of a Marine, I wanted to teach yoga to veterans, and Veterans Yoga Project allows me to offer mindful resilience tools of breathing easier, focusing your mind a little clearer, resting a little deeper, and an attitude of gratitude.
I served a total of reserve and active 30 years United States Navy. I'm a member of American Legion Post 94. We support and honor our service members. I'm also a retired fire officer from the city of New York. So we sustained injuries over those years. You know, you try everything. And even though sometimes we could be reluctant to try things like yoga, I attempted it. And generally speaking, there's benefit to it. I feel better. I wouldn't give it up. It's great. We have a great instructor too.
The tools of yoga will help all of us navigate the world a little bit better and help us to reach peace a little bit easier just by using those simple yoga tools. Veterans, especially combat veterans that are suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder, can use these simple tools to help them just feel better day by day. I just fell in love with yoga and the whole veterans yoga mantra, I guess you can say, with the focus of helping our men and women who served to reach a state in our lives where we have more peace. That's what it's all about for me. That's what yoga is all about for me.
We're going to use the palms of our hands and that physical sensation of your hands to help you breathe deeper.
My favorite pose would probably be the warrior pose, because that again helps my rotator cuff. So I've been an American Legion member post 94 since 1965. And I think the Legion has done an awful lot for veterans. About a year of PT for a shoulder rotator cuff injury, and it's been getting slowly better with this.
With yoga, I like the downhill skier. So this gives me the sense of flying without actually doing anything dangerous. I'm a 32-year member of the American Legion. I'm 76 years old, and at my age, I'm suffering from the usual ailment, high blood pressure, excessive weight, and loss of mobility. So with the yoga class, I find that I'm able to improve on my mobility, and I'm also sleeping better. So I'm very grateful to the Post 94 of the Legion for opening up their hall. The Veterans Yoga Project provides the teacher. It's not only the yoga exercises, but also the camaraderie of getting together with other veterans. Well, it's important that we don't forget the sacrifices that our service members made.
again, ladies and gentlemen. Would you please take notice to our video right now?
Responsible citizenship. American Legion youth programs have been defining that concept for generations. American Legion Boys State and Boys Nation have inspired future leaders, governors, members of Congress, astronauts, mayors, judges, business leaders, and even one president of the United States. American Legion Baseball has cultivated Major League stars, World Series champions, Hall of Famers, coaches, educators, and even one Vietnam War Medal of Honor hero. American Legion Oratorical contestants have gone on to successful careers in law, government, media, education, and entertainment, including a presidential candidate. American Legion Junior shooting sports competitors have discovered what it takes to practice hard and perform individually to achieve excellence. As part of a team, including one Olympic gold medalist. Participants in the American Legion's Youth Cadet Law Enforcement learn from the best how to protect and serve the public, including hundreds of active officers and first responders across the country. These American Legion youth programs and others have one common denominator. No matter the competition or nature of it, be it on the baseball diamond, in front of a microphone, or peering into the center of a target, responsible citizenship is the driving force behind all of it. The American Legion was built on the ideal that the world's strongest nations are populated by citizens who understand and care about their country and all it stands for. And service to the country is a lifelong commitment, a responsibility, whether you're in uniform or not. That ideal is etched in the hearts and souls of all those who served in the U.S. Armed Forces. Upon enlistment, each one swore with his or her life to protect, defend, and bear true faith and allegiance to our nation and its Constitution. Wartime veterans of the American Legion proudly lead youth programs because the future of a free, strong, and prosperous nation depends on responsible, active citizenship among young people. That is why the American Legion operates not to serve or please itself. The American Legion instead is built on selfless service. Veterans Strengthening America. To understand the meaning of those words, consider the American Legion's most sacred purposes: care, compassion, and respect for all U.S. military veterans who sacrifice some or all of their lives so we can live in freedom. Support for the men and women who continue to take the oath, pledging to stand in harm's way, no matter the danger, as members of our nation's armed forces. Reverence for our flag and pride in all it symbolizes, at home and around the world. Honored remembrance of all who served before us. Urgent, effective response to catastrophes and unexpected challenges, from hurricanes and floods to a global pandemic that disrupt our way of life. A chance to succeed for children who face difficulties not of their making, victims of abuse, neglect, disease, or disaster. Education and career opportunities through millions of dollars in college scholarships every year. And of course, provision of youth programs that help future generations of Americans become proud, responsible citizens and community leaders. The American Legion is the nation's largest veteran service organization. Together with the American Legion Auxiliary and the Sons of the American Legion, we number nearly 3 million in all 50 states and around the world. We come in all ages, shapes, colors, and sizes. Men and women proud to have served and determined to continue driving forward the importance of responsible citizenship through what we call individual obligation to the community, state, and nation. This is nothing new. For over a century, the all-volunteer American Legion has been making positive differences in our nation. The American Legion drafted GI Bill of Rights, educated tens of millions, and stimulated decades of economic prosperity, not just in the United States, but around the world. The American Legion has held government accountable and demanded fair treatment of veterans who came home disabled or changed by wartime service. The American Legion has demanded attention and support for a strong national defense in times of war and peace alike. The U.S. Flag Code was born of American Legion advocacy. So was the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, and numerous laws and ordinances that seek to keep our communities, states, and nation free, safe, and prosperous. The American Legion played an important support role in the success of such organizations as the American Heart Association, the American Psychiatric Association, and has stood as an important ally to the National Education Association, the American Red Cross, and of course, the Department of Veterans Affairs. The American Legion is composed of no particular political party. Nonpartisanship is written into our Constitution. The American Legion believes that all people of our nation are entitled to fair and equal justice, freedom, and democracy. Above all, the American Legion believes in the power of veterans strengthening America. And the cornerstone of that belief, from blood donors to classroom volunteers, is responsible citizenship in a land that veterans know especially is one worth serving.
Before we make the formal introductions of our contestants and our judges panel, I'd first like to recognize a few of our distinguished guests. This morning, I can't see out there because of the light, but I know that past National Commander Bill Oxford and his wife Frances are in our neighborhood. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, man, for being here. We are also pleased to have with us this morning our current Assistant National Adjutant of the American Legion, Mr. Rodney Rowland. Thank you for joining us. I would also like to recognize our National Vice Commander of our Wartime Veterans Organization, National Vice Commander of the American Legion, Kenneth Hilton. And his wife Carol is out there, I hope, or? She went home already. Oh, she's home already. All right. We also would like to welcome the National Commander of the Sons of the American Legion, Mr. Chris Carlton. And let's also welcome the American Legion Auxiliary Americanism Chair, Ms. Michelle DiGennaro. We also have the Executive Director of the American Legion here in Indianapolis, Mr. Jim Baca. We also have our National Judge Advocate, Mr. Mark Seavey, out there. And I'd like to acknowledge the gentleman who is serving as the chairman of the American Legion's Americanism Commission, which has the policy-making responsibility for the American Legion's National High School Oratorical Contest, Mr. Mark Avis. I'd like to thank all of them for their leadership. They make the American Legion so great. I would also like to publicly thank all those individuals who has assisted with the contest today, the quarterfinal contest, and the semifinal contest, without whom this national contest could not be possible. the judges, the timekeepers, tabulators, assigned topic preparation room monitors, ushers, and escorts, would you please stand and be recognized? Now, at this time, I would like to recognize our outstanding panel of judges. As your name is called, would you please come forward so that the National Vice Commander and the Americanism Chairman may present you with a token of our appreciation. First, Jonathan Greenberg, Director of Research and Strategy at the Jack Miller Family Foundation, serving in organizing communications and advisory role for Mr. Miller's extensive philanthropic efforts. He was previously the co-founder and senior vice president of the Ham Solomon Center, a news and public policy group where he was a respected voice on foreign policy and Jewish issues. His work has been carried in numerous publications, including the Jerusalem Post and the New York Post. He spent 2 years as vice president at the Illinois Policy Institute. He was an ordained rabbi at Hebrew Union College in 2006 and lived in Jerusalem from 2001 to 2002 at the height of the Second Intifada. He has a master's degree in public affairs, a bachelor's degree in political science, both from Indiana University. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Dr. Paul Porter, Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the National Speech and Debate Association, where he serves as Chief Diversity Officer for the largest high school speech and debate organization in the nation. Paul's research explores how multicultural competence creates better environments for traditionally underrepresented groups and has given numerous presentations on diversity, equity, and the inclusion across the state of Indiana and nationwide. He was a two-time national finalist as a high school student and later appeared in 19 state final rounds as a national final as a member of the Ball State speech team. In 2021, he was voted to the Indiana Schools Speech and Debate Association Board of Directors. Thank you, Dr. Ford. Kristen Soltis Anderson. Come on up. Poster, speaker, commentator, and author of The Selfie Vote, Where Millennials Are Leading American and How Republicans Can Keep Up. She is a founding partner of the Echelon Insights and opinion research and analytic firms that serves brands, trade associations, nonprofits, and political clients. Kristen is a frequent speaker to corporate and political audiences about emerging public opinion trends. She is the host of SiriusXM's The Trend Line with Kristen Soltis Anderson. She has been an on-air political contributor at CNN, Fox News, and ABC News. In 2016, Kristen was named one of LA's most compelling women in Washington. And in 2013, she was named one of Time's 30 Under 30 Changing the World. She received her master's degree in government from Johns Hopkins University and her bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Florida. Dr. Matthew Spalding, Kirby Professor in Constitutional Government at Hillsdale College and the Dean of Van Andel Graduate School of Government at Hillsdale College's Washington, D.C. campus. As Vice President for Washington Operations, he also oversees the Alan P. Kirby Jr. Center for Constitutional Studies and Citizenship. and the academic and educational programs of Hillsdale in the nation's capital. He is the best-selling author of We Still Hold These Truths, Rediscovering Our Principles and Reclaiming Our Future, and is also executive editor of the Heritage Guide to the Constitution, a line-by-line analysis of each clause of the U.S. Constitution. He received his bachelor's degree from Claremont McKenna College and his master's and Ph.D. in government from the Claremont Graduate School. Thank you, Dr. Paul. Robert Warren, Military Affinity Lead Account Manager at USAA. He has more than 30 years of experience in organizational leadership, collaboration, and strong relationship building with clients and internal partners. Robert is a DMA, Direct Marketing Association certified marketing professional, and he has worked successfully in multi-level organizations and the diverse cultural groups both in the United States and abroad. He served over 13 years in the Army's Military Intelligence Corps. He is a combat veteran of Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and has been recognized numerous times for service and honor. He's graduated from the United States Army's Defense Language Institute and attended Miami-Dade College and Central Texas College. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce you to the contestants. Let's give them a big hand right now because they all did a great job. Contestant number one, would you please stand up? This is Ian Chung from New York. Thank you. Contestant number two, would you please stand up? And this is Haley Bach from Indiana. And contestant number three, introduce you to Emma Johnson from Wyoming. And now, the moment I think you're waiting for, I hope, the announcement of the outcome of the contest. And I can tell you, these were all great. The winner of a $20,000 scholarship is Miss Emma Johnson from Wyoming. The winner of a $22,000 500 scholarship is Ian Chung from New York. The champion of the 84th American Legion National High School Oratorical Contest is Haley Bach from Indiana. She is the winner of a $25,000 scholarship and an all-expense-paid trip to the National Convention of the American Legion in Charlotte, North Carolina, this summer as a member of the American Legion Youth Champions delegation. Please join me in another round of applause for all three of our contest. They were just great. Good. Hoorah! Hoorah! We will be honoring all 49 national contestants this afternoon at 1 p.m. at the awards luncheon to be held in the Golden Ballroom 1 through 5 in this hotel. We ask everyone to please honor the seating assignments in the ballroom. Contestants will be seated toward the front of the room as guests of honor so they may receive their recognition. All other ticket holders are welcome to be seated at any table with a table tent reading general seating. I would ask that at the conclusion of the contest, in just a few moments, that all 49 contestants remain here in the auditorium so that we can get pictures of all of you up front. And now, would you please rise for the benediction? Chaplain Norris Kern, past National Chaplain of the American Legion, will lead us in our closing prayer.
Shall we again be in an attitude of prayer? Most gracious Creator and Sustainer of the universe, we thank you for your presence with us in the Great American Legion family in this exciting time to honor youth of our nation. We thank you for the decisions that have been made today and look forward to how this investment in youth will be returned in the future. As we come to ask your benediction upon our assembly, we do thank you for our Gold Star families and the families of the prisoners of war and missing in action. And for all those veterans who gave some. We thank you for their service, for they know the cost of freedom of which we enjoy. And we ask you to bless and watch over our world, especially in the troubled areas at this time where violence seems to take an upper hand. We pray for your benediction of peace among these people and pray that the whole world would work together for that united effort. This we ask in your holy and divine name. Amen.
Would everyone remain standing? Join me in a salute to the colors of our nation. And salute. 2. This concludes the 84th American Legion High School Oratorical Scholarship Program, a constitutional speech contest. Thank you for attending. Thank you all.